sometimes you just jump onto Reddit and you see what Reddit's complaining about. And I kind of agree with Reddit in this point, but there were some interesting points that came up along with it, and I want to talk about it. So let's alt tab real quick, and I'll show you what the complaint is and why it's worthy of talking about. So this Reddit post came up. Disintegrates in a very weird spot. So before we even read it, I can tell you, yes, it is in a weird spot. The biggest problems that I know about with Disintegrate are it happens to have an interesting interaction with Gambler's Fallacy, which gives you plus 100 flat crit as long as you never ever hit an enemy. And along with it, you use the unique offhand Ignivar's Head. And it gives you like 8,000% more damage or something. It's like totally bonkers. And the issue is, if that interaction's in the game, then why would I not use it? And if I like, so if you do use the Ignivar's Head thing, then your build's like fine. And if you don't have 8,000% more damage, your build kind of sucks. So like maybe Ignivar's Head is too good, maybe that interaction should be removed, or maybe Disintegrate sucks. And it's only being carried by this unique item here. So that's the gist of what's going on in Disintegrate. As far as I know, there's only one Disintegrate build in the game, and the rest of them suck. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that, but that's not the point of this video. This thing down here, somebody responded and got a lot of upvotes here. It's not just Disintegrate that's bad. Enhance. It's not just... I disagree. It's not just Disintegrate that's bad. All channeling skills, except for Warpath, also hashtag delete Warpath, are just counterproductive. Standing still in Last Epoch, where actively dodging effects is important, is bad. Not regenerating mana while attacking is bad. The damage all channeling skills minus Warpath do is flat out bad. The only reason why Warpath's the only channeling skill being played is that you can move along with it and you remove its mana cost. Channeling has 3 big red flags: active dodging, mana, and movement. But it gets nothing in return. It does get something in return. I don't think... Okay, so here's the deal. Channeling skills in an action RPG, they have one big red flag to me. And that big red flag is that they take the A out of ARPG. They take the action out. And it makes your gameplay into a binary situation where either you can stand still and deal damage, in which case your build's OP because you can just stand still and deal damage, or you can't stand still to deal damage, and therefore your channeling skill is completely unusable. So that's really important, right? The fact that if you're standing still, you take damage, and if you don't need to if you don't need to dodge the damage, then your build's too strong because you can just tank everything that comes your way. So that's a big problem for me. This person, I think, is off base because in Last Epoch, there are things that channeling builds get in return. Most channeling skills, and it's actually so prevalent that most people think it's all. I'm pretty sure there's an exception to it. Most channeling skills in Last Epoch get stun mitigation. And when you are pushing an arena, when you're doing high-end content, you know that one of the most dangerous things in Last Epoch is getting stunned. Because then you lose control of your character and you stand still, you get hit, you die. So channeling skills are strong because most of them have stun mitigation built into them, which is great. Another thing that they get is blessings. So let's pop this open real quick. Let's go like this. The blessing, Monolith Timelines, blessings for Spirits of Fire here. Spirits of Fire has a flat armor blessing. Let's go to the 100. The flat armor blessing is very good. You'll very often see your hardcore, serious, high-end, try-hard gamers recommending that you take the flat armor blessing because the flat armor blessing is truly very good. On the other hand, if you're channeling, one of the biggest advantages of channeling is you also get 500 to 750, more than double the armor that you would get otherwise. So remember, the very first thing that I brought to your attention is like taking the A out of action RPG. You get so much flat armor, and you can scale this with like a percent armor blessing, or you could just build percent armor in a year. And then you get more armor because you're probably using a Throne of Ambition if you're seriously interested in being tanky. This is absurd. What the fuck? Okay, so you do get things in exchange. Somebody in Twitch chat gave me a list of all the channeled skills in Last Epoch. I'm going to assume that their list is correct. let's take a look at it real quick. We have Lightning Blast, which doesn't exist, so that is 0. Fireball, which doesn't exist. There's only one Fireball build. I guess there's 2. You can do Spark Charge stuff, but basically what you do with Fireball is you make them sequence, you make them all hit the same target, you stack a bunch of cast speed, and then you have like the little Fireball explosion on the bottom right side of the skill tree. So there's pretty much one Fireball build, and it doesn't include channeling. So that doesn't exist. Channeled Ellie Nova, when you say all channeling skills are counterproductive, the damage that all channeling skills do is Fireball. Channeled Ellie Nova was one of the strongest builds in all of Last Epoch for a very long time. It was called Nova Boy. A person named Foe, F-O-E, pioneered that build and played it to lots of local celebrity. It was really good, and it still is very good. Yeah, Nova Boy, channeled Ellie Nova, it's very strong. It's been the same build for a long time. If you're interested in that kind of build, you've probably already played it. You're kind of bored of it, but it is very, very good. Basically off screens too. It uses focus, so it's boring. Next up is Disintegrate. Disintegrate is an appropriate skill. If you're using the Ignivar's Head thing, remember Ignivar's Head is boring because it's the only way to get 8,000% more damage. Don't quote me on the percent increased damage, but basically it's the only it's the only Disintegrate build that exists. Next, so we have 2. We have Channeled Ellie Nova, which is great, and Disintegrate. Focus gets a shout out because somebody in my Twitch chat technically enjoys playing tank Focus with Arcane Ascendance proccing Lightning Blast, and they think it's like a Giga Chad, super tanky, excellent build. You can go ask Rhodey about it if you want, but I'm not going to talk about it. There's Flame Rush, which I hope we can make a DPS Flame Rush build at some point, but it's channeling, but it's moving, so I don't think it falls in what this person's talking about. It doesn't really count as channeling. If you took off the channeling tag, it'd be basically the same skill, but Flame Rush is excellent. Next up is Warpath, being the most problematic skill that any action RPG has ever willingly chosen to include in its game. Also, hashtag delete Warpath. I hate it. Shield Bash. They wrote Shield Bash, but I think they mean Shield Rush. Is there a channeled Shield Bash, really? Shield Rush is a channeled skill. If you're trying to make it into a DPS build, you're like quickly tapping it over and over, so it does not count as part of this conversation. Rebuke is channeling, and Rebuke, a Sentinel skill that gives you infinite effective HP, is also problematic because it breaks the very first thing that I mentioned at the beginning of this, which is to say it makes you way too tanky, and those tankiness stats persist after you're done rebuking. So if you're willing to do the turtle playstyle of like channeling this thing, having a pop, doing something for 2 seconds, and then channeling it again, it's boring, and I don't want EHG to have that in the game because then people will use it, and people love taking the fun out of their games. They will min-max the fun out of it. Next up is, what's the next skill? It's called Wandering Spirits. And I think channeled Wandering Spirits is pretty good. Again, it has this playstyle where you can like lightly tap it and generate 3 spirits actively or immediately. But channeled channeled Wandering Spirits does do enough damage. You have tankiness, you can position, you can like channel it for a while, and then if you need to move, you just like move, and then you can channel it again. It feels very similar to something that I'm doing in the background on Frostclaw. Like, yeah, I have a ton of cast speed, and I kind of feel like a channeling build. But if I need to move, I move, and then I keep casting, and then I can move, and I can keep casting. And like channeling builds, you don't just stand there and hold down right click and then die and then complain that you don't have enough defenses. You move and then you keep casting. It's like the next skill that we're talking about is Flurry, which was excellent and is still an excellent skill. You can do melee flurry or bow flurry. They both have their places. In the past, they were bugged and gave you too much attack speed, so they used to be one of the strongest things you can do in all Last Epoch, but they're still good. There's still appropriate things that you can do, especially like proccing multi-shot or scaling bleed. Rampage is a melee skill, but it's a movement skill, so I think it falls out of scope for what the main complaints of this Reddit post are. So what are we trying to say? Not Smelter's Wrath? No. What's the other thing? What's that melee skill that Forge Guard has? It's a Forge Guard, it doesn't count. Drain Life. Drain Life is fine. Most Drain Life builds end up using a non-channeled version of Drain Life, but even the channeled version of Drain Life, like it deals good damage, and then you can just stop channeling and reposition if you need to. the idea that you just like you start channeling and then you're stuck there for like the next 20 seconds, like it's nonsense. It's not a good basis for a conversation. So that's stop upvoting this. Wandering States. Yeah, we talked about Wandering Spirits already. It's like channeling skills are counterproductive. Yes. Standing still in Last Epoch is bad. Yes, I agree. Everything sucks. No. No. But let's go to a recommendation. So it's really hard to give it. It's really easy to call out things that you don't like. And this is like for any facet of life, right? Like user experience kind of thing. It's very easy for a user to point out when something sucks because you have a bad emotional reaction to it. Why is this here? I wish it were better. On the other hand, for a lay person, it's really hard to give an accurate description of what a better solution would look like because oftentimes these problems are very complex. On the other hand, I've played a lot of this game and I talk a lot more about this game. And I have at least one idea, and it's not necessarily the right idea. And I'd like to talk about it for just a moment here. So I mentioned, let me scroll back up so I can click on this thing again. I mentioned that we have these blessings here, right? Let's go monolith timelines, click on spirits of fire, scroll down to 100. This 500 to 750 armor while channeling. I do think that this is problematic. There's a lot that you could say about like the rest of taking the A out of action RPG. There's a lot you could do, like deleting Warpath. That'd be great. Yeah, totally delete Warpath. But this blessing right here, I think is problematic because it encourages you to approach the game in a binary way. Like I should be channeling. And then a one shot comes and you think to yourself, I have plus 750 flat armor. Do I avoid the one shot? Do I run away from it? And like engage with the game, play the game as it's meant to be played. This big fucking fireball shooting at me. Should I walk out of the way? Or should you just hold down right click? And the fact that this blessing here makes you want to hold down right click, I think is a big mistake. I don't like this. My short term or initial impression of what this could do is armor if you began channeling recently. And the reason that I like the idea of plus flat armor if you began channeling recently is it says like, okay, you're not going to channel for like a minute. You're going to channel for 4 or maybe 5 or 6 seconds because recently is action RPG jargon for 4 seconds, in case you don't know. I think that'd be a healthier playstyle for Last Epoch to recommend to its player base. Let's take a look at a different website, lastepochtools.com. It's called Build Planner. Take a look at a, wow, that's a lot of ads, huh? Whew. All right, listen, we're going to look at a Sentinel and we're going to pop open the Warpath skill tree. Warpath is a skill that I hate in every action RPG where it occurs. So bear with me for a moment while I vent. No, so Warpath really, it takes the action out of action RPG. Like I said before, it turns it into a binary state of is channeling Warpath a good choice or is channeling Warpath a bad choice? And if channeling Warpath is the right choice, then you should never stop Warpathing. And I think that is a problematic thing for Path of Exile, for Sloromancer, for Diablo, for Last Epoch. I don't think it's good. I think that Warpath is a skill that continues to exist in action RPGs because Diablo did it 50 years ago, and you gotta cater to the people who are 60 years old. Let's keep going. There's a node in Warpath that's very cool, and it doesn't get used very often. And if you paid attention to what I said a moment ago about if you began channeling recently being a proposed solution for where this flat armor peaks and then drops off, what if this node were good? What if the giant splitter node, what if the war slash node were good? So I'll read it to you. It says, after spinning, after warpathing for at least 2 seconds, you do a war slash at the end. This deals more damage in a larger area for each second you spent spinning up to a maximum duration, and the maximum duration is 5 seconds. So what if this were like a premier or a common playstyle for Warpath, where you'd begin channeling, you get your armor buff, and then you stop warpathing after 3 or 4 or 5 seconds. You let out that big war splash or war slash, and then you'd cast your anomaly, or you'd cast your sigils if you need them, or you cast your volatile reversal, and then you begin warpathing again. And all of a sudden, your good, encouraged, EHG designed this for you playstyle of warpath is more active, and they're rewarding you for taking game actions instead of what they're currently doing, which is rewarding you with 750 flat armor and stun mitigation and being able to deal damage while moving, which is widely regarded as one of the best things you can do in an action RPG, for holding on right click. Fucking right click, dude. It's like, yes, but Cyclone is fun. All right, we're gonna go time out some people in Twitch chat. So that's my that's my rant. That's my thoughts about channeling and taking the A out of action RPGs, and hashtag delete warpath, because it's a problematic skill, and it's problematic in virtually every action RPG that it shows up in. Every action RPG needs a spin to win. Every action RPG needs an audience to play its game. Especially if it's a new indie title. You definitely need an audience to play your game. Yeah, that's true. Does it need spin to win? No. I think if your game is encouraging the players to hold down one button, and that is the ideal of that build, and that's like a good end game build, I think that's problematic. The counter argument that I expect is, what about people with wrist pain? And yeah, that is an appropriate argument. But there's plenty of builds that I've played in Last Epoch that don't hurt my wrist. One of the very first things that I realized upon playing Last Epoch, after I stopped playing Path of Exile, is that I no longer wear my wrist brace. My wrists no longer feel like they're going to explode. I call... there's Last Epoch builds that I play on stream that I call streamer builds, streamer-friendly builds. And streamer-friendly builds are things that have appropriate offense, appropriate defense. I can talk to Twitch chat at the same time. They don't require a lot of micromanagement, and they're easy on the wrist. And there's lots of builds that I play in Last Epoch that are streamer builds. And I feel like streamer builds also cater to audiences that have wrist pain. So, there. That's my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree with me, hashtag delete warpath, or whether you think that it's a good idea to keep warpath in the game. But there, Reddit's good for something. See, Reddit causes some good conversations that we can have here on stream as well. That's it for today. I'll see you next time.